Man, this is crazy, everyone. Check this out. Bluetti's brand new AC240 water and dust resistant IP65 rated power station. This is awesome. It's been out here for the last few hours in the rain. And check it out, covered completely in water, getting wet. I have the B210 expansion battery plugged into the bottom. Everything is IP65 rated, so it's perfectly fine if you get caught out in the rain while recharging this unit. And I know what you're thinking, how can it be water resistant with the air ducts? You have one there. You have two fans on this side, as well as a vent on this side, and another air chamber in the back. But this has an independent air duct running through it to keep it cool, and fans just on the other side, so it pulls air through this side into the other side, and it keeps everything out of the elements because everything is isolated. So it's moisture and dust resistant, so if you had this thing at the beach, in the sand with the salt water and the moisture, everything should stay good as long as you keep these front ports covered here. Now, if you have obviously USBs plugged into there or a DC outlet port, that would not make that waterproof, so keep that in mind. But everything here, the outlets stick out a little bit to help moisture from getting into those. And you can plug your 12 volt DC 30 amp plug into here. It will be moisture resistant here with the aviation style connector. However, keep in mind, any connection after that, you want to make sure it stays watertight as well. But we are going to put this thing through a bunch of testing today, see how it performs, see what it can and can't do. We're going to hook it up to charger, both the main unit and the expansion battery, to see what kind of solar input I can get into it and just see how it works overall, so stick around. And if you guys are interested in this, I'll leave links down below, as well as any coupons that I may be able to get to save you guys a few bucks. If you're interested, please use those links down below, and it will help support the channel and support my reviews. But this is insane. Let's get into it. With the Bluetti AC240, you get a user manual, bag of cables, looks like an AC charge cable, solar charge cable, not sure what that one's for yet, and an Anderson to XT60 cable, and the unit. And with the B210 expansion battery, you get the manual, an MC4 solar charge cable, the connecting cable, and the expansion battery. In the first test, we're gonna make sure that it's IP65 rated by dumping extra water on it here. The things I do for my tests. Hey, you gotta test it, right? But that is awesome that this thing is rated IP65, because not only is it good if you get stuck out in the rain when you're recharging this thing, but I was always concerned about moisture on my other power stations when they're outside charging in the summer, then you take them into your air conditioning, or vice versa if it's winter time and you take them into your heat. If you ever noticed, when you did that, metal parts would always collect condensation, so I was always worried about my circuit boards of my other units doing that. This one, you don't really have to worry about that because everything is isolated inside, so that is awesome. All right, so now we're doing an AC discharge test to see how many watt hours this will output. We're at 50% right now. I got 640 watt hours out of it so far. Pure sine wave coming out of the outlet, and it's been discharging at about 1,000 watts since I started, 120.7 volts. And listen to this fan, very, very quiet. And what I like about the fan being that this is water resistant, it sucks air in on this side and through these ports, one on the front, one on the back, and it blows the air out of this side, and this is the side that the fans are in. So far, this thing is working excellent. So we're getting down there pretty low. As soon as it hit 4%, it started showing that flashing red caution light for the battery. Currently, we're at 1,240 watt hours. We got 4% left, so we'll see how much further this goes till it shuts off. And this has been running 1,000 watts for about an hour and 16 minutes. All right, down to 1%. We're already over 83% efficient, 1,270 watt hours, and it just kicked off. 1,300 watt hours out of the 1,536 watt hour capacity. Excellent, that's over 84%. Another test I like to do is the idle consumption of both the DC and the AC inverter. I left the DC inverter on for 22 hours and it used about 10% or 7 watts per hour. I left the AC inverter on for 13 hours and it used 20% or about 24 watts per hour. And this unit, as well as the expansion battery, is using a Life PO4 battery that can be recharged over 3,500 times. And now, just out of curiosity, I plugged the fully charged B210 expansion battery into the Bluetti AC240 just to see if I could use the power from that expansion battery from this when it was completely dead, and it would not allow me to turn any of these on, but it is starting to charge this unit slowly. It just turned to 1%, so let's see if we could turn it on now. Yes, so when this is at 0%, you will not be able to turn any other outlets on. This does have to get up to at least 1% for anything to work on here. but it looks like it's starting to recharge this unit from the expansion battery. I'm gonna let this go here for a while and see if that percentage continues to go up. And as soon as I shut the camera off, it instantly went up to 58%. So it went from 0 to 1 and then bumped up to 58%. That's because this unit is completely dead and this one is fully charged, but this one is 2,150 watt hours for the expansion battery. All right, so I let it go for about 15 to 16 minutes and you could see in the app that the expansion battery is charging the unit. The unit's now at 8% and the expansion battery's at 94% and it was at 100%. So that's pretty cool to see that that will charge this. Now you could put solar in through the bottom port on the expansion battery and it will go through and charge the upper battery if you don't have solar plugged into the upper one, or you can have solar plugged into the upper one and it will charge the bottom, or you could plug solar into each of these. So if you have two different types of solar panels, two different arrays, you could plug both of these in individually and charge them both up. Now the top unit is capable of 11 to 60 volts, 21 amps, 1200 watt max. So do not go over that 60 volt input limit. And the bottom one also has an 11 to 60 volt input, so do not go over that 60 volts, but it has a maximum input of 10 amps or 500 watts. Another thing I tried is I plugged solar into the bottom expansion battery with both units off. The bottom battery comes on and starts charging, but does not activate the main unit. However, if you do the same test and plug the main unit into solar with both units off, it will turn on, start charging, and will automatically turn on the expansion battery. So if you only have one array, I would recommend plugging it into just the top and letting it charge the bottom. That way that will turn on automatically as needed. All right, so now I have 800 watts of solar here, and I have another 600 watts of solar here. We're gonna plug them into the expansion battery and also into the main unit and see what kind of input we can get out of these. Now these I can parallel together because I have two of the same ones, and it should be putting out close to 20 amps at around 40 volts. This one, I do not have a second one, so I can't run these in parallel. I cannot put these in series because of the 60 volt limit. You never want to go over the limit of your unit. So let's see what we got. All right, so now I have the two 400 watt panels ran in parallel into the expansion battery. It is currently charging. You can see there, and it does have pass-through charging, so I'm able to output power out of this, which I'm actually outputting around 96 watts while it's charging at 400 watts. And this expansion battery does have a 11 to 60 volt, 10 amp max input, and it's taking in 10.13 amps, almost 40 volts, and 400 watts. So I'm not going to be able to go above 400 watts with those panels. So actually one of those panels into this unit would probably be just fine. Now I have the one 600 panel plugged into the expansion battery, and it's taking in almost 45 volts, 9 amps, and still right at the 400 watt mark. So I would have to get this up a little bit higher on the voltage to be able to input the maximum 500 watt limit. All right, got the 600 watt panel plugged in, showing just over 400 watts. Does have pass-through charging, everything's lit up, and I have a light bulb running. It's too low to actually register the output, and it's charging at 43 volts, almost 400 watts, and almost 9 amps. Now I have the two 400 watt panels ran in parallel. I'm getting 633 watts of input, 19.42 amps, 19.7, almost hitting 20 amps at 32 volts, 638 watts on my meter. And this does have an 11 to 60 volt, 21 amp input. So I'm almost hitting the amperage input, so I'd have to get that voltage up higher to hit the 1200 watt max. If I had two 600 watt panels, I could run those in parallel, and then I would probably be getting closer to around 800 watts. So it would have been nice to see a little bit of a higher voltage input, but I don't think that's too bad, 600 and some watts. Okay, now I have the 600 watt panel plugged into the expansion battery, and one thing I want to note is that it is charging. You could see here, and also you could see on my meter here, it's charging at almost 400 watts. When you're charging through just the expansion battery, it does not show you any wattage input up top. It will change your hours remaining for your charge time, but it does not show how fast it's charging. So keep that in mind. If you want to know how good or how well your expansion battery is charging, I recommend you get one of these meters to use. So now let's plug in the solar up top, and it will register there once I plug the top solar in, but it still won't add the number for the bottom input. All right, so I have both units plugged into solar. I'm getting almost 400 watts on the expansion battery and almost 640 watts on the main unit. So I'm getting just over 1,000 watts of solar between the two. But like I said, the top number is only the amount of energy going into the main unit. It does not calculate how much is coming in from the bottom. That would have been nice if that could calculate that, but you can see the hours remaining dropped to 1.4. So very nice that you're able to plug 2 different solar panels into each of these, or you're able to charge that one just separately. If you needed to take that out and keep the main unit inside using it while that charged up, you could do that. Really nice to see though that it has ports on here, both USB-C, USB-A, and also a 12-volt port, as well as being able to charge it. Because as much as I love this unit here, these expansion batteries, that's all they're good for, is hooking to this unit here on the anchor. You can't use that for any 12 volt. You can't charge it up individually. It has to be charged up from the main unit. So it's pretty much useless unless you have it connected to the main unit. Really nice to see that you can use this separately. I could take this camping and run just this expansion battery into my 12 volt portable cooler, and it would probably run at a very long time, and then I could just recharge this up with a panel and just use that to run that cooler the entire time. So that's awesome that you can use it individually. Plus in the future, just say this breaks and it no longer works. Hopefully that would never be the case, but then you could still use this. With that, if the bottom unit broke, the expansion battery would be no good and you'd have to buy a new unit just to use that expansion battery. So very nice to see. I'll be charged up in no time. So now let's put some AC to it and see if it has simultaneous charging. All right, I just kicked the power onto it, and I do have this set to turbo mode. You can see with that little sign right there. So we're gonna see what kind of input we're gonna get through solar versus through AC and see what kind of wattage we'll charge at. I'm getting over 1,000 watts combined between the top and bottom through solar, and it's also taking in almost 1,800 watts of AC input. So that's crazy. That thing would charge super fast. But why this is nice and why simultaneous charging is nice through both solar and AC is if you're in a power outage, you can connect a gas generator or something like that to the AC side and charge this unit up with both solar and a generator in a pinch if it's a cloudy day, and benefit the energy of both. And it does, like I said, have pass-through. All the outlets are still working perfectly. So that's awesome to see. Let's plug something a little more powerful in here so you can see the output and the pass-through charging work. All right, I have a small heater plugged in here, and you can see it's drawing 1,166 watts while getting 1,750 some through AC and 640 some through DC. So very good there. Excellent on the output. And let's see if I can control this. Yes, I can. So some units that I plug this heater in, I can't control these touch controls. It just gets all crazy. This one, I can still use the touch control. So I don't know what makes a difference on that. If you know, put it down in the comments, because I don't know why it works with some units and some units it doesn't, but it seems to be working perfect with this one. That's controlling the temperature there. So excellent. Working perfect. And one thing I think is pretty neat is in the app you could see how much power and voltage you have coming into the unit, both through AC and solar. So that's pretty neat to see in the app. It's awesome to see how much voltage your solar panels are inputting so that you don't have to read it from a meter like this. If you don't have one, you're still able to see that voltage. But overall, I would say solar charging and AC charging on this works perfectly. No issues at all. Very happy with the way it recharges. So now we're going to do a max power output and see what kind of output we can get from the Bluetti AC240. It's rated for 120 volts, 2,400 watts of output, but you can put that in powerlifting mode and get up to 3,600 watts out of it. It has one TTR RV outlet, and it has two 120 volt, 20 amp outlets down here. You can see it's outputting 120 volts, but let's kick some things on and see what we could power with this thing. Here's an air fryer here. I have some hash browns in there for this morning, and that's 1,500 watts. Let's kick on this coffee pot. This should be another 800 to 900 watts here. Still maintaining 120 volts, 2,382 watts. So that's just about the maximum output limit of this unit. And I am pulling all that power from the TTR30 RV port here. I have some adapters plugged in, and I do have all the power coming through this outlet here. Really good output though on the voltage, still maintaining 120 volts. Really nice output on the sine wave there. And we're gonna go ahead and let this go for a little while here and see what percentage it gets down to while these finish up. And you can see pulling this many watts with 1,536 watt hours, the percentage will drop fairly quickly. So that's where that expansion battery would come in nice. I don't have it currently connected. I'm just trying to see how the unit works just by itself. And when you put this in powerlifting mode, there's a little arm that comes up here, and that would be good for things like resistive loads like hair dryers, toasters, small heaters, and things like that. I typically don't use that mode because I don't want it to damage any of my sensitive electronics by dropping the voltage. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to kick on this small heater and see what happens. Let's watch the voltage and the wattage. So it's showing it's going to overload, so I'm going to go ahead and shut that heater off because I want to finish cooking this and brewing this. But the voltage did stay at 120 volts, which was nice. Let's try that one more time. So up over 3,000 watts there. Showing a caution light. So it does look like it can power some surge loads there. It did not kick off immediately, that was nice. All right, now I have it in powerlifting mode. Gonna try that again. And yeah, and the volts dropped way down to like 94 volts, so that's why I wouldn't really recommend using power up mode. And you can see that here by the little strong arm diagram on the display. So if you have that mode on, you have to watch going over 2400 watts when you have sensitive electronics plugged in. Personally, I never use that mode. All right, so everything's done. Coffee, hash browns, we're down to 31%. So if you're drawing really large loads like 2400 watts, I would definitely recommend getting that expansion battery. But the test ran perfectly. The fans are very quiet, no overloading until I went over 2400 watts, then it showed the caution, but really good. Now keep in mind that you're only gonna get about 20 amps out of this RV TTR30 output port. You also have a 30 amp 12 volt DC output here. It has an aviation style connector. If you have a 12 volt system in your RV, you can run up to 30 amps off of this port, which is really nice. And you can get another 10 amps out of this cigarette lighter port here. That's good for coolers and things like that. Now this unit also has two 100 watt output USB-Cs, and you can see here I have no problem getting 100 watts out of either of these two. It also has two 18 watt USB-A ports. One thing I did find odd about this is that the adapter cable that they give you, that's the aviation style to XT60, is 12 AUG wire, but the adapter wire they give you to go from the XT60 to Anderson port is only 14 AUG wire, so I'd watch running 30 amps through this. I found that odd that they didn't make this 12 AUG wire as well. So overall, guys, I'm really happy with this unit. Performed really well. Now keep in mind you can only output 20 amps out of this RV TTR30 output port. However, they do have an adapter that they're going to make that you can parallel to these units together, and you'll be able to get up to 4,800 watts out of this unit. Now, whenever that adapter is available, they are supposed to be sending me one. So I'll show you guys what that can do. I'm going to hook it up to my home and see what it can power through my main panel. So if that's something you want to see, make sure you stick around and subscribe to see that. And if you're interested in picking one of these units up and feel like this is the unit that you need, I'll put links down below, like I said, as well as any coupon codes. Thanks for watching, everyone.